What's up, everybody? It's Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to the Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow @Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers. And we said we'd come to you when a coach was hired. And about 6:30 a.m., my eyes opened this morning. I checked my phone. There was a notification from Shams. I thought it was another, free agency speculative article. But no, the Pacers have hired Nate Bjorkgren from the Toronto Raptors, Nick Nurse's, closest confidant in the coaching world, known pretty widely as an extremely positive influence in the locker room, hardworking, connects well with players. We've already seen Fred VanVleet come out and praise the hiring as well. Clearly, Kyle Lowry's a big fan. All Raptors players are a huge fan. He's won championships as an assistant coach in the GLeague and in the NBA. He's had a high school coaching experience, so he's coached younger players. He's coached older players. I must say, my immediate reaction is this is so Pacers. Alex, this is a name that got brought up pretty early in the process, but then went quiet. And just like every other Pacers move, it wasn't anyone who was reported.
Yeah, he wasn't one of those 3 or 4 names that were thrown around every day, was he? So, yeah, you're right. That is probably the most Pacers thing. Also, hiring another Nate might give some people some PTSD. So there's that as well. And he's bald for the fans out there who haven't seen him yet. But no, I think this is a great hiring from, like you said, the Pacers were looking for a players coach, weren't they? They were looking for a guy who can communicate with the players, relate to the players better than McMillan did. And from all reports, from everything I've read so far, it looks like that's what he did. He took over a lot of huddles from Nick Nurse, I should say. He, like you said, he has GLeague experience, so he's been there, done that, and I'm excited, man. I think, the Raptors are a team that shot a lot of threes in his 2 years there. I don't know if that was necessarily him, but I'm excited to see what modern offense we integrate to our system this season.
Justin, rapid reaction this morning when you woke up and saw that Nate Bjorkgren was the Indiana Pacers' next head coach.
Yeah, obviously a bit shocked, but then after 20 seconds, you just think that's classic Pacers, isn't it? As you mentioned, rumors rarely get out. Indiana do such a great job of keeping everything in-house. I was pretty confident that Chris Finch was going to be the coach, just with everything that was happening. I am glad. I mean, we all mentioned what kind of coach we wanted. We wanted someone untried. We wanted someone new. We wanted someone, who would bring in a new set of eyes. I was big on not hiring Mike D'Antoni, so I'm personally happy. All reports this morning from, Raptors beat writers seem positive. They really talk up Nate. And yeah, like you mentioned, Alex, as well, I think the biggest kind of news for me was that Nick Nurse kind of let him draw up plays, lead huddles.
Yeah.
Toronto were a championship team, so you can't ask much more from an assistant coach. I think it's just really big. Who is he going to bring in on the sidelines to help him?
Yeah, that's the attention will turn over the coming days to his staff. Obviously, being an inexperienced head coach, he'd want some experienced heads on his bench and some people that he trusts. He and Nick Nurse have been together for 20 odd years, 30 years. They've known each other, but Nate went from, and it feels weird saying Nate because I feel like we just did a series of podcasts on a Nate being fired, and now we've got a Nate being hired, as you said, Alex. So Bjorkgren began his career as a high school coach at the age of 23. He's currently 45, so he's been coaching for 22 years, which is really important, I think, because he's young, but he's got a lot of experience. I think the famous story that will get bandied around a lot is the fact that he took an unpaid assistant coach job, quit his day job as a teacher and basketball coach, and moved back to Iowa to work under Nick Nurse in the G League, unpaid for the first year, which is a massive chance and just shows how hungry he was for an opportunity and how much he believes in himself. So that's a big thing. I think it's very clear that he's an extremely positive guy from everything that I've read, which, as we've said, it was a real priority for the Pacers. I think Nate McMillan was named Sarge for a reason. That was his nickname, and he certainly drilled the players and wasn't into, those relationship building coaches that we see in the modern day. And it seems like Nate Bjorkgren is a relationship building coach, is a player's coach, which is exactly what the Pacers wanted. I'm interested now looking at, the first thing I thought of, Alex, when this hiring occurred was the issues that the Pacers had inbounding the ball against the Toronto Raptors earlier in this season, where we were in front the entire game. The game was in Toronto. I think it was right around the start of 2020, around January. And we could not inbound the ball. We were trapped for about 2 minutes straight, and it was a coaching masterclass. And I do wonder, and I'm interested in your thoughts, whether that experience spoke volumes to Kevin Pritchard about the way that the Raptors are coached.
Well, I mean, they beat us down multiple times, didn't they? And then you come back to the next time we play in Toronto, and the game was over within the first 6 minutes. So, the Raptors have been a team which I'm sure KP and, Simons have been envious of. Obviously, they won. And also, I think just the way that they go about their business, isn't it? Obviously, they play a modern style of basketball, but, you've got a guy in Kyle Lowry who's a no-nonsense guy. And I think a lot of the things that the Raptors get done, a lot of the things they aim for is similar to what we're aiming for in Indiana. So, the Toronto isn't necessarily a big market team. They're not going to get big free agents like us. So I'm sure he was looking at those guys and thinking, wow, how can we either poach one of them or how can we emulate that style? And today we got one of those guys, didn't we? So I think that was definitely something that KP was looking at.
And it's clear that they looked at the very best performing teams, looked at coaches from those very best performing teams, with the exception of Chris Finch, who the Pelicans weren't a playoff team this season. However, they were impressive in spurts when they were healthy, and wanted a positive coach from a team that emphasizes good offense, passing. And, Justin, this is just another example in the NBA of a key assistant on a very good or championship level team getting poached to another team. And sometimes it works and sometimes it really doesn't. Is your gut feel that, Bjorkgren will be able to get out of the shadow of Nick Nurse and coach his own team here?
Well, hopefully. I mean, we mentioned with the rumours about Becky Hammond about Greg Popovich's assistants not being that successful coming out of his kind of tree in San Antonio. But look, I guess all you can go off of today is the reports. And, so many, like you mentioned, Adam, so many players have come out and said how excited they are that Nate's now head coach. I even saw Devin Booker as well. TJ Warren actually played under him in Phoenix for 2 years. So that's good. I guess he's got some sort of connection with the Pacer player. But for me, look, it's great now. We've got about 4 weeks until the NBA draft. So now we can actually start deciding what we do with, the lineups and trades. Because now, obviously, Bjorkgren will obviously have some sort of roster he's going to want to assemble and play with. So I wonder what this means with, Turner and Oladipo and Sabonis. I guess questions yet to be answered.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned TJ Warren because there was a well-publicized quote from TJ Warren earlier in the off season after the Pacers were eliminated from the playoffs, where he was asked if he liked the coaching candidates, and he said that he very much liked the coaching candidates. And if you look at the candidates that we had, there was a definite connection here between TJ Warren and Nate Bjorkgren. So, Alex, do you think TJ Warren was specifically talking about Bjorkgren when he was saying that he liked the list of candidates?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me because he also played under him in a few games for, I think it was in the G League. I could be wrong, though, in Bakersfield. So
the Bakersfield Jam. Great G League names, by the way.
They have some interesting jerseys down there as well. But no, he averaged like 27 and 7, I think, under Nate there. Obviously, that's the G League, but just a little nugget. But also, I do think it's interesting with the two big lineup, as you mentioned, because that's why I was so heavy on Chris Finch as being the next coach, because he had that experience in firstly Denver, but then also New Orleans. So that's something that I'm definitely that's probably my biggest concern, I'd say. Firstly, does this influence what the Pacers do with Miles and Domas? And then secondly, how does Nate adjust to playing with two bigs? Because they didn't really do that in Toronto, did they?
That was a point that was raised, I think, on Twitter earlier today around, they tended to stagger Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol. So, is that a forecast of things to come for the Pacers, and is that a forecast of things to come for the roster? I mean, we talked about Chris Finch having DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis at his disposal and playing both of them at the same time with great effect. We've chosen a coach that hasn't necessarily worked with a two big man lineup to great success. So does that act as a precursor of what is to come for this Indiana Pacers roster? It's interesting how much you can read into a simple appointment of a guy without understanding what his philosophy is, because he wasn't the head coach in Toronto. Nick Nurse was the head coach, so made the lineup decisions. So, Justin, is it jumping to conclusions to suggest that Nate Bjorkgren may shy away from a two big man lineup?
Gee, I don't have a clue. I think a lot's going to be answered tomorrow for us. I see he's got a media interview, which will be really good. I hope the Indiana media ask him these sort of questions, which I'm sure they will. What do you see the Pacers' most successful lineup as? Where does he see the team in the next 2 to 3 years? All that sort of stuff. So, if you're a Pacer fan, definitely tune into that Zoom interview. I think it's 11 a.m. in Indiana time. For us, it's probably about 4 a.m. or something. But
right.
I just want to read out a quote from Kyle Lowry. You mentioned he was a fan of the hiring to the Pacers, but just want to read this out. I think it's great. So Kyle Lowry said, "Nate is I would say he's the F man. He's always that positive, happy-go-lucky, always looking at it as the plus side, not looking at anything negative." Now, that just reminds me of Frank Vogel, which I love. Frank was always the positive guy. Players loved playing for him. He always thought he could beat anyone and would take it up to the champs in Miami. So if Nate's anything like that, huge fan.
And look, I think the GLeague experience can't be understated from my perspective. I mean, you look at the ability of a coach to be able to harness the talent of a guy who's not getting an opportunity at the highest level and empathize with a player not getting an opportunity at the highest level and get the best out of them. That skill set can be applied at any level of sport, any level of life, to be able to coach someone in the ability to get to the next level and get that extra 5 or 10% out of them. So I love that we went with a guy with a lot of G-League experience. Obviously, he's very well respected in the Raptors organization. He's had quite a few G-League stints. He's made the G-League finals. As we said, he actually lost to Nick Nurse in the G-League finals. That was interesting to watch and listen to him talk about. He said that he and Nick Nurse would talk every other day during the G-League season, but then during the playoffs, they just didn't speak for 2 weeks while they were against each other. Just obviously another little anecdote about how passionate and how important he sees the competitiveness and maintaining that professionalism, which is even better. I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen so far in terms of what everyone has said about the guy. I haven't read anything negative about him, which is a key for me. There's not even a thinly veiled or veiled negative comment by anyone. Everyone has positive things to say about the guy.
Are you saying all Pacer fans agree on something we did?
I know.
Surely not.
I just checked for a full moon, but yeah, it is a weird vibe to see Pacers Twitter so positive on a hiring. But I think it's clearly because the Raptors won a title. I mean, Alex, doesn't that mean the most for a Pacers fan to be able to say this is a guy who won a championship 18 months ago?
For sure, 100%, man. I think that's probably that's what every single fan wants, isn't it? They want a championship. And that's why I think Chauncey Billups was another candidate we were high on, because he's a winner. We wanted a winner. We wanted a player-first coach, and I think the Pacers checked just about every single box. So So I think it's a hiring that no Pacers fan, at least right now, maybe in 12 months' time we'll be having a different podcast, but no Pacers fan right now should be disappointed or upset.
Look, we've preached power of positivity on this podcast, and we've unfortunately not had a great deal to be positive about over the last few months with the Oladipo situation, with the Nate situation, with the way that we exited the playoffs. The off-season brings new opportunities and some excitement, and we turn our attention to the draft. We have our coach now. We have potentially some roster moves to make. We have a disgruntled superstar, and we have some reports going around. So it would be remiss of us not to talk about Victor Oladipo at the end of this episode, even though this is a Nate Bjorkgren episode. And congratulations to Nate Bjorkgren before we move on. Justin, reports during the week that Victor Oladipo might have some interest in the Miami Heat, but the Miami Heat may not have quite as much interest in Victor Oladipo. What are your immediate thoughts?
I mean, immediate thoughts is something I've been preaching to you guys, and whether it's Victor Oladipo's camp or his fault or not, I still believe this has now become worse than the Paul George saga. Every day there's a new report, something someone said. I'll still be shocked if he's in a Pacers uniform come January or whenever the season starts. Look, I think with this new coaching hire, there are going to be multiple changes. There's no way we're running it back with the same starting five. But yeah, I'll still be shocked if Oladipo's on the Pacers. I know people are saying, the return we're going to get's disgraceful. No one's offering anything good. But look, if you got a player who doesn't want to be in uniform, you got to deal him.
Yeah, it's getting more toxic. It's getting more toxic on social media. It's getting more toxic, I think, in what's been written. I mean, there was an article today by Dan Devine in The Ringer around Victor Oladipo where he talked extensively about the Fat Joe interview, which is a sentence that it could only be said in 2020, the Fat Joe interview. I don't think Fat Joe's been relevant in my life for about 20 years since he probably put out a song when I was in high school. But yeah, it's getting messy, isn't it, Alex?
Oh, every week, man, there's something new, isn't there? And there's new rumors, there's new teams coming up. The Bucks were a team that came up yesterday. So I don't know what's going on. And like Justin said, man, I don't know. Maybe unless teams are throwing second round picks our way, I don't know what kind of return could be that bad that you keep him and then potentially lose him for nothing in 12 months. So if I'm KP and on the Pacers and he doesn't want to be here, you have to deal him. If you don't get the return you want, that's just the NBA, isn't it? You're not going to always get great return for a star. So it's unfortunate, but you'd rather get someone who wants to be there in the locker room. We saw what happened in 2017. That locker room was beyond toxic. So, they wouldn't want that again, I would have imagined.
And lessons learned, right? Like as soon as a player expresses this level of dissatisfaction, whether it be coming off an injury, whether it be, in the off season, whether it be on Instagram with Fat Joe, I think you just got to cut bait at that point. It's better for the player to be in a different situation. It's better for the team to not have that presence in the locker room. I think there can be a really important lesson learned for all NBA franchises and all sporting franchises. I don't think there is a place in 2020 for toxicity in the locker room. You need to make sure that there's as much cohesion as possible. And coming back to Nate Bjorkgren, it's clear that he's a positive person. So I don't imagine that he would be in the frame of tolerating a disgruntled superstar or really wanting to work with someone who didn't want to be on the team. He's obviously solely focused on leading the Indiana Pacers to their first NBA championship. And if there is a player on the roster that does not want to be a part of that championship team, see you later. I think it's all business.
You know what I find interesting, Adam, and that's where about 4 to 5 hours we're recording this after Nate got hired.
Yeah.
Miles Turner's come out, congratulated him. TJ Warren's made a statement. Nothing from your star player in Oladipo. What does that, the star, if Oladipo's meant to be the star, the leader of the team, he should have already come out and said something. No words, quiet. I mean, seriously, what does that tell you?
It's telling, isn't it? I mean, what other highest paid player, all-star player, would not come out and congratulate the new head coach of their team immediately. Now, he may be, on a cross-country flight or an international flight. He may, send out the congratulations shortly. But, the fact of the matter is that Miles Turner was very, very quick to say congratulations on social media, and Miles hasn't been a great presence on social media, but made a point of jumping on and congratulating Nate Bjorkgren on his position. So, as usual, Miles is the consummate professional, always, leading from the front, both on social media and obviously in the locker room as well. I feel like he's clearly one of our leaders, and Victor was supposed to be that, and he's not right now. And I don't think he ever will be again. And all the very best to him with whatever he does next. But onward and upward for the Indiana Pacers. We've got the draft coming up, I think, in about 2 weeks' time. Based on the fact that we have a coach, we always predicted that there would be a coach before the draft. Alex, are we making a move before the draft or on draft night, or not at all?
I still say no to that, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm going to say no. What about you, Justin?
Well, it depends when the NBA allows trades. I know there's still speculation when trades are actually going to be able to happen in free agency, so it does depend on the dates. But I'm still pretty positive they'll make a draft night move. I'll be a bit disappointed if the draft ends and we've still got the same roster. I think you've got so much flexibility there with the year of COVID and the scouting. I think some teams might not want to invest all their eggs into a top 5 pick. There'll be a lot of movement, a lot of teams looking to move up, move down. So I think this is the year you kind of go, you know what, let's try and get a prospect. Maybe Nate's got his eyes on someone that he's wanted, but yeah, let's try and get someone in the draft.
It's exciting. This is going to be the craziest NBA draft in quite some time, I think, particularly with next year potentially involving high school players as well. So there'll be a lot of movement. There'll be moves to try and get into next year's draft. There'll be moving down, everything in between, and the possibility of some crazy trades. So that always makes for a good draft. Final thoughts on the Nate Bjorkgren signing. Alex, are you overwhelmingly positive, slightly positive?
I'll stick with slightly positive. Got my concerns, but overall, there's nothing too much to worry about.
Justin?
I'm happy. I'll know a lot more tomorrow after his Zoom interview.
We will be watching that with bated breath. We said we'd bring you an episode, and we did as soon as we possibly could. We hope you appreciate it, Pacer Nation, and we'll talk to you again soon. This has been the Paceroos Podcast.